Thank you, Emily. Anton, please.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, INSS, INSS and FRS, for inviting me to speak, but at the same time I should notice that for the last time I visited Tel Aviv, surprisingly, in May 2009. So we were with Emily at the same panel when North Korea did the previous test. So please be cautious when inviting me to Tel Aviv for the next time. But I've checked that I was not in Tel Aviv in 2006. I will be back to North Korea later, and I would like to start with just a few words about the past, the history of non-proliferation regime. And here I would like to join mostly to Rose Gattemüller, Bruno Tertre. I do believe that the achievements of the regime are clear. The regime is not perfect, but at the same time I think there are a number of examples where the non-proliferation regime helped to prevent increase of the list of countries which possess nuclear weapons. And again, one of the examples Bruno mentioned yesterday, when the legal base of NPT is used in UN Security Council, to impose new sanctions on Iran. Another example was Iraq. And another example, post-Soviet states, when NPT review an extension conference in 1995 was important deadline for Kazakhstan, Belarus, and first of all probably Ukraine to make a political decision to join NPT as a non-nuclear weapon states. From some of these countries, the actual withdrawal of nukes was completed later, but the political decision was made by the NPT review and extension conference. So it has its own effect. It had its own effect on the fact that all these three countries are members of NPT as non-nuclear these days. So, but of course, NPT is not perfect, and if I will rank from, sitting in Moscow, what are the most significant challenges to the non-proliferation regimes? For some reasons, usually they called in Russian regional challenges, but probably, and not probably, for sure, they are global. And first of all, I will name Pakistan. We do have good relations with Pakistani scholars. I visited Pakistan from time to time, but I'm quite concerned what impact Pakistan could have for the non-proliferation regime in the future. Of course, it's already had. AQ Khan was not the only illegal network. There was another one, which well described in publications as well. And I very much agree with Professor Nacht when he mentioned yesterday that inside threat in Pakistan, internal threat, probably the most significant one, which is quite difficult to address. My own experience related to inside threat in Pakistan was the following. I was in Pakistan in late November, early December, I think it was 2010. And among other meetings, we were invited to the residence of the governor of Punjab province. So we met the governor, a lot of bodyguards was around him, we chatted with them. They told us, how the governor used his huge residence area with whom he played tennis and blah, blah, blah. And when I'm back to Moscow, a few weeks later, the news was that the governor was assassinated by his own guard. So most likely it was one of the persons whom we communicated just 5 or 6 weeks before. And again, my another communication with Pakistani scientists, of course they never, at least in our communication, told us that they do face the nuclear security problem, but when I once asked if this is a problem, the answer was the following. You know, you see around what the security situation is, and this is correct. Because when we arrived to Karachi, for example, we were met with 3 cars, with 4 Rangers, with Kalashnikov and M16, and another car with machine gun on the top. I mean, when you are not an expert on Pakistan like me, I'm expert on nuclear kind of things, it provides you with a feeling that something is going wrong. So the person who is in the nuclear industry told us, so you see what is going on. For sure it affects every element of our life. So it was his answer. So I do concern this is about how secure the materials and technologies which are in the countries, which are in the country in Pakistan, and the same true. Are we sure that other proliferation cases from Pakistan are impossible? I personally don't think so. At least, again, I spoke with Pakistani people. We brought Pakistani people to Moscow. We are in touch with them, but I still have no persuasive, evidences that we could sleep well. So Pakistan, from my point of view, is the first and the #1 challenge. Second is North Korea. And it's open secret that they tested now 3 times. But the problem, we know from the past that they're quite active in proliferation, at least missiles again. Syria is an issue which still probably to be further investigated, but on missiles it's an open secret that they cooperated in the past with a number of countries in this region, including with Iran. And I was in North Korea last year, even having Soviet experience. I was quite surprised how things are going on there.
Surprise of what?
Surprise how much problems would they have with the economy, and how much attention they could pay to the projects they believe they need. For example, one of the recent hotels they built, it's like in Dubai, 100-floor hotel. Again, it's not open yet. It's everything from glass. So again, it's like in Dubai. It's not open yet. There are some rumors what it's still closed. But again, if they have a goal, they will do it. And again, this is one example. Another example, their recent launch, last December launch of satellite, which was quite successful. So even to be a very poor country, they will find an opportunity to reach the goal. It could take years. They started their missile and nuclear efforts in the 70s probably, but now we know that they are quite successful in this. So from that point of view, first, of course, it has a significant impact on non-proliferation regime. And from my point of view, even more negative than Iranian case, because North Korea was a part of NPT, it's withdraw, it's tested 3 times, and nothing significant about that still going on. At the same time, on North Korea, I would like to mention that probably nobody is surprised about this morning test, because about a year ago, most of people whom I spoke with in Seoul, in Washington, I would not name all of them, but their point was that most likely if North Korea make a launch, after that UN security document will be approved, after that North Korea could test. So everybody expected this scenario about a year ago. So it was March of the last year around Nuclear Security Summit when I have had this kind of exchanges. So probably nobody is surprised about this morning tests. And for me, this is a question. What is behind that? And I could not exclude that in some capitals people do believe that this is a good opportunity to test the new leader, how the North Korean regime will behave, because it goes without saying a new pressure will apply on North Korea after this morning test. So from that point of view, again, probably nobody should surprise about this morning test because everybody was expecting that for almost last 12 years. But I think that the response should be well calibrated, especially if there is no strategy how to deal with the problem. And I'm not sure that there is any, either in Washington or in Seoul and in other capitals. And of course, the keys in Beijing. If we are able to get China on board, I think we could apply additional pressure on the regime or to deal with the regime. Iran. First of all, I would like to mention that a few times here it was said that Iran violated NPT. I don't think so. I fully agree with Rose Gettemüller, and she did a very good formula that Iran violated its non-proliferation obligation, and to be clear, Iran violated its safeguards agreement with IAEA, but not NPT. And all our exchanges yesterday led me to conclusion that most of people do believe that Iran is trying to get nuclear capability, all necessary technical means, but there is no political decision to produce actual device. So probably this is a good news, so we still have some time. And at the same time, I should mention that it is exactly the strategy which Iran was followed during the Shah. It was exactly the same. From my interviews which I made from late 70s, probably 77, it was exactly the same. The scope of nuclear technology development, the level of technology in Iran, that time of course was different because Iran was at the beginning. But in probably 77, there was a decision that Iran should keep all options open. And undeclared activity of Iran started about this year. It was about uranium enrichment, it was about reprocessing. And again, there are some different views about weaponization. I'm not sure that it takes place, but it's still the issue to be further investigated. So again, the strategy of Iran, from my point of view, is about the same from late 70s. And I think we pay too much attention to technical aspects of Iranian nuclear program. How many centrifuges they have, how many additional centrifuges, uranium, low-enriched uranium, etc. But we don't pay much attention to what is going on in the region, because Iranians do have their own concerns, security concerns. So if I may rank, so I would say that Pakistan, North Korea, and Iran. And I think one of the important facts why Iran is different from, for example, North Korea, every time Iran is trying to present its activity as it is within their not only NPT obligation, but also safeguards obligations, which is quite important and very different from what North Korea is doing, because they don't care about their non-proliferation record at all. So what the priorities from my point of view should be, how they are seen from Moscow, from Russia, for the upcoming future. Again, first of all, I think that CTBT should be the priority for the next 4 years. And I think that it will be very useful, very helpful if Obama administration will make it official as the major goal in this area for the upcoming years, as new start was a few years ago. And I think Rose Getty-Muller and Obama administration in general has some experience how to deal with Senate. It's not an easy issue for sure, especially after 1999 experience. But I do see some signs, for example, how U.S. nuclear laboratories view the prospects of CTBT impact on national security. I do see some signs that it could work, but again, it should be the priority for U.S. administration. I think if this administration is not able to reach the progress, I think it will be almost the end of the treaty. Because it was open for signature in 96, so now it's 2013. I mean, after Obama leave his office, it will be 20 years old treaty, which is still not in the force. I mean, we will not have much chances to enter it into force anymore. So, and with no CTBT in force, I think that significant progress in both non-proliferation and disarmament could not be reached. And if U.S. is able to ratify that, I think that China will follow, India could follow, and Pakistan could follow. So again, we will have 3 countries from this region which still have to ratify that. This is not an easy issue, but still it will be much better conditions try to make it possible than we have now. So I think it should be the first priority for the upcoming years. The second one, Helsinki Conference. I think it's in the interests of all countries, including which are out of NPT, to make it possible, I mean the Helsinki Conference, to start the process. Because otherwise, all of us, including who are out of NPT, will be in troubles during 2015 NPT review conference. And I think that a small step in these directions, like the first conference, could make NPT review conference, will provide NPT review conference with more chances for success than with no such a Helsinki conference. Third, FMCT, I will not go in details, but I think this is another important measure which could help to progress in the nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament. And the last one, additional protocol to make it universal norm, universal standard. Again, it's up to every country to decide whether it sign an additional protocol or not. But if we will reach progress on other elements of the non-proliferation regime like CTBT, FMCT, at least, I mean, small steps forward, I think that we will be in a better position to persuade countries which are still either has not signed or not ratified additional protocol, that this is in their interest to do that. So I think this menu, these 4 issues should be the priorities, how it's seen from Moscow for the upcoming probably 4 years. But I would say that probably even 2.5, so before NPT review conference, which will take place in 2015. And probably the final note about Russia's policy. It's an open secret that during the last 20 years, Russia mostly was preoccupied with a lot of homework to be done. I mean, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it was a headache to keep everything under control, to establish new export control system, nuclear security, etc. I think that, and my vision, that most of this work has been done. And my guess that during the upcoming years, Russia will be more active in the third countries, where there is a need for assistance or cooperation. Russia recently contributed $6 million to IAEA Nuclear Security Voluntary Fund. Russia is going to spend, I think, about 20 million euro for radiological security in the Central Asian countries. And of course, Russia's neighborhood will be the first priority. But I think that Russia is interested to provide assistance under multilateral umbrella or as part of bilateral cooperation in the non-proliferation field to other countries, especially where Russia has special interests, like, for example, countries where Russia construct nuclear power plants, like Vietnam, like some others, and the areas could be quite different. For example, border control, radiation control at the borders, and some other areas where Russia first has experience and where Russia is ready to provide its own funding even out of the country. So I will stop here. I'll be very much interested in your questions and comments. Thank you.